Get ready to rise above the noise and unlock your true potential. Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift, the podcast that's all about keeping it real and helping you live your best life.
I'm Kim Staples, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my beautiful co-host, Ianthe Moro, on this journey of unapologetic growth and transformation.
Together, we share unfiltered thoughts, practical strategies, and advice on manifesting without the fluff, encouraging you to prioritize self-care physically, emotionally, and energetically so you can make things happen without making yourself sick.
In a world that often tells you to dim your light, we're here to help you shine brighter than ever and be seen in your best light. Join us as we dive into the art and science of living unapologetically and reaching your full potential.
Buckle up. Get ready to learn, grow, and evolve with us on Unapologetic Uplift. New episodes released weekly.
Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift. I'm Kim Staples, and I'm joined by my co-host, Ianthe Moro.
Hello, so glad to be here. Unapologetic Uplift, episode 2.
Today we're doing something a little bit different. This is our second episode, but this is actually our third time recording because we sat down last week to record an entire episode. And at the very end of that episode, I realized that I did not hit record. So rather than beating myself up and hating myself for that, and rather than Ianthe being really upset with me, she offered me so much compassion and empathy, and I forgave myself. And we thought that it would be a good idea to talk about self-compassion and forgiveness and being kind to ourselves, because that is exactly what I had to do in that moment. It would have been really easy to say, "Oh, I'm such an idiot. What the hell did I do? How could I do this?" And make it something so much bigger. But instead, I took a step back and said, there must be a reason why it happened this way. And that's how Ianthe responded too. And I am so grateful.
Well, yeah, for me, it was interesting. I wasn't upset at all. In fact, I felt like, okay, this is a gift because I know that we can do even better. And there were things about that episode. There were even moments when I started crying, if you remember. There were things that were listen, it wasn't meant for you. That's all it is. It wasn't meant to be consumed. It wasn't meant to be out there. I feel two things that come to mind. One is, how is this happening for me and not to me, which is a practice that I always choose to use. And it really helps me not feel victimized or upset when something goes wrong. So how it was happening for me, I could immediately access what that meant. And the other one is rejection is God's protection, which I'll say a lot. So in this, the rejection was simply, it didn't record. It's not going to be out there, which is a kind of rejection, like it didn't work. And so somehow that's a protection because it wasn't an episode that was meant to be, again, listened to, I guess. So it's great. And it gave us a chance to practice. And I love you and I love our friendship and I love that we can be perfectly imperfect together. And it's also okay to disappoint ourselves, disappoint others, and just be real. And I wasn't disappointed at all. I seriously found it to be a gift. So here we are.
I love that. And I love you so much. And this episode is called Embracing Imperfection. The power of self-compassion and forgiveness. With that said, Ianthe, would you like to set the intention for us today?
Yes, I'm going to light this candle. And this candle is being lit with the intention that you're kind to yourself today. It's that simple. When you catch yourself saying anything that's unkind, I want you to stop. Remember the intention that we set here today for you to be kind to yourself first.
And so it is. We live in a society where it almost feels like there's an expectation to be perfect. But what happens when we're not? Oftentimes, we hold ourselves to this high standard of perfection. And when something goes wrong, we can make ourselves wrong. We can beat ourselves up and we can be really nasty to ourselves.
So, one way of not beating yourself up would be because we like to give as much as we can tools on this podcast, not just talk about it, but actual tools. And one of them is to realize that it's a beautiful thing. You've made the stakes really high because you care. And that is a beautiful thing. So don't get mad at yourself for that. But what is perfection? If we break it down, what is perfection? There is no such thing. There is literally no such thing. So if we know that there's no such thing as perfection, then what is it that we're going for? Someone's perception of what perception is, someone else's expectations or our own, in which case that's impossible. Then we're not being in the moment. We're not allowing ourselves to be real. And, in Unapologetic Uplift, part of the unapologetic piece, at least in our title, is about being real.
Yeah. So, also, I think there is such a great opportunity in fucking things up and making mistakes. Failure, if you will, is a stepping stone to success and a massive part of the learning process, right? Like, if you're never failing and never making mistakes, I'm going to say that you're not growing and you aren't really learning because it is just such a pivotal part of the process. Something I tell my kids is I don't care about straight A's. I want you to come home and tell me that you fail at things because when you come home and tell me that you're failing at things, that shows me that you're putting yourself out of your comfort zone and trying new things.
Exactly. And it's easy for us to say, don't worry about falling down, just get back up. I mean, we've heard this. There's a lot of cliches around it, but it's so true, Kim, because if we don't welcome the mistakes, in fact, it's even so I'm going to call it welcoming the mistakes. It's even bigger. My practice is bigger than just being okay if I make a mistake and what will I learn from that and asking how is this happening for me and not to me. For me, it's even to the point of I welcome the mistakes, the falling down, the oops, the I got it wrong, the I have to fix this because course correcting, it's such a great feeling to know that I have and you have, everyone has the ability when you're in the moment and when you are self aware enough that you can trust yourself to make things better and to course correct, then you welcome the mistakes to come because it gives you an opportunity to figure something out, learn, grow, get better in every way. And so, of course, I welcome that. And course correcting is what I mean when I say that is that it's not to mean that oh I've set on a course and then it's not right and it has to it is that and it isn't. We're all on a path. We're all on a course. We all have intentions that we're setting, even if we're not doing it on a candle every day specifically. Everything you do, you have the intention to you're thirsty, you have an intention to go get a glass of water. That's still an intention. So we're doing intention all the time. When something comes into our field of existence and it interrupts and disrupts an intention or where we're going, where we thought we were going, it's in allowing that to be what it is and welcoming it and saying, okay, well, I was going to go to the kitchen for a glass of water, but my cat threw up on the floor and now I'm going to stop for a minute. And I'm actually, before I get that water, I'm going to clean this up. And then I realize I'm out of the kind of special cleaner that's natural that will help so that he doesn't do it again in that same spot to clean it up. So now I'm thinking about creating a list to the market. And eventually I'm going to go back and I will get that glass of water, but there might be several things that come into my past on the way to do it. I grow from that. I learn from that. I learn to trust myself. I learn that I can handle things that happen. And of course, that's a little thing, and these can be big things. And I don't mean to minimize if it's a big oops or a big ouch that's coming into your path. But I promise you that the way that we create resilience, and resilience, by the way, is a superpower towards having a really good life. The way we would create resilience is by getting through hard things.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think just recognizing that we're human, right? That you mentioned before, like perfectionism isn't real. And it can also be another form of self sabotage. We can hold ourselves back by saying it's not good enough. It's not perfect. I have to fix this. I have to fix that. Or it's like, if we just take a step back, recognize we're human and show ourselves that self compassion, we are building that beautiful resilience.
And here's something today that you're doing, Kim. You don't feel good today. And we're also coming off of a podcast episode that didn't record. And so you could be beating yourself up right now, or you could be saying to me, you know what, we have to put it off. We're going to have to not do, but we're showing up anyway. We're doing it anyway. We're doing it, what I like to say, perfectly, imperfectly, because there
Mm,
is no perfection. Like I said, that is just a lie and it's a myth. There is perfect imperfection.
and it's a beautiful thing. So let's talk about forgiveness. Forgiveness can be really challenging. It can be hard sometimes to forgive other people, but it can be really hard to forgive ourselves.
Yes. And in fact, I have seen there's this beautiful piece of art that a friend of mine has at her home. And when I saw it, I went, ah, I just got like this whole body response because it's this beautiful piece and it says, my superpower is forgiveness.
Mm,
And it really hit me because I thought, wow, it is a superpower. Why is it a superpower? Because it's saying that we're not going to allow, I mean, look, the idea is if you have to forgive someone, if you're forgiving someone, that means that they did something against you, or that means in some way they hurt you, they affected you in some way negatively. So it is like a superpower to be able to be hurt. And then that person that perpetrated the hurt, you're able to say, I forgive you. And what does that mean? And what does that set up in your body? And what does that set up in that relationship? And I would love to hear what you have to say about this, Kim, because of your work that you do in the world. But when you forgive someone, how do you, because I know a lot of people say, well, this person did something so awful to me. If I forgive them, that's telling them that they have permission to do it again. And this is why I say it's a superpower. There's a nuance to it. True forgiveness is actually has nothing to do with them and everything to do with you, because when you hold on, the opposite of that would be resentment and bitterness and these things that will literally damage your system. So to let it go, that's about your intense self-care. It's not saying what you did was okay, and it's
right.
not saying I'll ever allow it again.
Yeah, I completely agree. Forgiveness is for us, not for them. And when we forgive somebody, it doesn't mean that we agree with what they did. It doesn't mean that we're even okay with what they did. It means that we're moving past it and we don't even have to have that person in our life again if we don't feel like that is safe to do so or we don't want to. The forgiveness is for us, it's letting go and remembering the past is the past. There's nothing that can be done to change it. It's already done, right? So I find this to help me, particularly with forgiving myself. There are things that I have done in the past that I held some shame and guilt around. And when looking at forgiving myself, I would tell myself, what's done is done. There's nothing I can do. I can't go back and change it. It is already completed. All I can do now is show up as a better version of myself and do the best in this moment to make sure that I never make that mistake again.
That's
And it's the same
beautiful.
when we're looking at other people, right? We can forgive them and accept what happened for what it is. And we can hope that they do better in the future. Whether or not we give them another chance to be in our lives and another opportunity to potentially hurt us again, because that's always going to be a risk, right? We get to decide that, but it shouldn't prevent us from being able to forgive because it is truly for us. And when we're able to let it go, it's a freedom that we don't have as long as we're holding on to resentment.
Yes. And I will say, I'm going to add that forgiveness isn't a permission slip for you to do this thing again to me, because that's where the boundaries come in and you have a decision to make whether you're going to allow them in your life again in that way or in different ways or at all. And the other thing to add, that came up when you were talking was it's also okay if you're thinking about this, and I welcome you to think about who is it that you might want to forgive so that you can let go of some resentment for yourself. And as you start to scan your mind for things that have happened to you and people that you may want to forgive, when it's too close to the event and trauma, I don't think that that's a time to pressure yourself to forgiveness. I think that it's a beautiful thing to recognize that one day you'll get there, but to give yourself grace to get there when you do and to take little steps. So maybe find as you're scanning through, like, who do I need to forgive that would help me release me from holding on to these grudges or these things that become toxic in my body? Find ones that are little or where the trauma is far enough away from the experience that you're able to actually do that. So you don't set yourself up to fail with this exercise. So you can give yourself little wins. Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to forgive that person at Starbucks for writing my name incorrectly on the cup. Like, that's a really little one. There's not a lot attached to that. There's not a lot of trauma there. Unless you have a name like mine and people are constantly misspelling it. No, it's not actually traumatic for me even, but I use that one because whoever does spell my name right, that would be that doesn't happen. So it's easy to do that. And I think it's great to exercise a new muscle if you haven't been in forgiveness a lot, or you've judged forgiveness as being a weakness or somehow more about the other person. I'm not forgiving them. They have to come to me for an apology and all these things that we go through. Do a little one, practice on a little one.
I love that. And how would you say that you practice forgiveness, Iante?
I thank you for asking. I think, how do I practice forgiveness? I get very clear on how is this happening for me and not to me. And I realize that we're all in a relationship here and it's not somebody trying to hurt me that can hurt me that I'm allowing. It's stopping the stories. It's stopping creating the stories and just going into what I'm feeling, not making myself wrong and not making them wrong because I'm seeing it for what it is. Because if somebody, the way I practice forgiveness is I have to be the awareness of, and I guess it would help if I think of a very specific time that I need to forgive someone. So I find out someone, I'm trying to think of one that everyone could relate to. Someone misrepresents me to someone else. So basically, it's gossip, going behind your back. Somebody misrepresents who I am or something I said to someone else behind my back without my permission.
Mm,
Ouch, yuck. It's uncomfortable. But you know what it is? I say, how's this happening for me and not to me? And this is what allows me to get to the forgiveness. And I go, wow, this is happening for me because I now realize this isn't a person I can put the kind of trust in that I thought I could. Now I realize they're not in my closest inner circle. They can still be, I don't have to cut them off entirely, but they're not representing me well, which tells me that I'm not very safe to be in a very close relationship with them. And that's a beautiful thing to find out and discover. Oh, wow. Thank you. I now discovered that. Thank you for showing that to me. Okay. And I can think about the energy of forgiveness because I know it's about them and their insecurities and not about me.
beautiful. And I think that sounds like mindfulness, really, right? Like you're being very mindful and you're not, to me, it sounds like you're not taking it personal, which is massive because it's very easy to take things personal when somebody does something that we feel is wrong, that they've wronged us, they've talked about us behind our back. It would be, especially something like that, very easy to be like, oh, it's because there's something wrong with me, or I'm this, or I'm that, and to like find truth in what other people might think or say. So I love that.
Thanks, Kim. And it hurts. Yeah, it hurts your feelings. I know it hurts my feelings when that happens. So I'm not like, oh, I'm so excited. How is this happening for me and not to me? No, it does hurt at first. And I go, oh, wow, that hurt my feelings. But it's that awareness, like you said, and the not taking it personally, remembering to get myself out of the way, allow myself to have the hurt feelings, though, feel it. Like that, ooh, that's yucky. And not letting that define what I do next or how I speak to myself or how I think of myself or even
Mm,
how I think of them.
you are so emotionally intelligent and mature.
Well, thank you. It's a work in progress, I promise you. And how do you deal with, I'd like to know how you deal with forgiveness. How do you do it?
I would say quite similar actually. I practice mindfulness. I might journal on it and meditate and breathe through it because there is that initial sting, right? It hurts when people hurt us or do something to us that we feel we need to forgive them for, or even ourselves. I try to take a step back. I try to not take it personal as well because it is really easy to. And in the past, I think I did take it very personal and it would affect my self esteem and self confidence. But it's like, it's a them problem, not a me problem. It hurt. I'm going to take a step back and practice mindfulness, practice feeling and releasing the emotions. And sometimes it takes time, and that's okay too. Sometimes it's something that doesn't bother me very much. And I'm just like, okay, I can move past it right away. Right. But I think, yeah, practicing mindfulness and feeling through it and then ultimately letting it go and not harboring that resentment.
I want to bring something else up that because you mentioned you're so great at um, you're so self aware, Kim, and calling yourself out on what you do. And it reminded me of something that we can easily do also when we're talking about forgiveness is to go to the person and say, you know what? I have forgiven you in a very like, I am above you. I am so great. I have done all the work. And you know what? We're fine. I have forgiven you. It's like this energy of I am some kind of royalty that's waving my, my scepter and saying, whatever. You get the point. That's not actually forgiveness. That is putting yourself above someone else. And it's audacious and it's yucky and it's not necessary and it's not actual forgiveness. What that more is saying, I am taking the moral high ground. I have better morality than you, or I'm higher than you, or, any of that. So I just welcome that. And this comes from an ancient Jewish tradition, actually is that it doesn't require the other person even being aware that you're forgiving them. And you don't need to let them know that you have. That is a singular and solitary practice at its highest form. So when you really forgive someone, you're doing that internally and you're stopping those processes that when you're not forgiving them caught or you're in resentment, you're in anger, you're in frustration and all of those toxic things. When you clear that by forgiving them, because you're allowing them to be human and make mistakes and you're not going to hold it against them anymore. You don't have to acknowledge it out loud to that person.
Yeah, I agree. And it can come across as like almost like tit for tat or keeping score, right? If you forgive them, it's for you. Maybe if they ask, or, there's certain situations where somebody might apologize to you and they want to know if you've forgiven them, and then sure. But otherwise, I think, yeah, just keep it for yourself. We often treat other people with kindness, but we can forget to extend the same courtesy to ourselves.
Yes, and this comes up when we're a very conscientious people. We want to do our best. We have ourselves held to very high standards. That can be a little bit of a slippery slope because back to the whole thing we started with perfection, there is no such thing as make believe. So if we're holding ourselves to super high standards, we can be mean to ourselves because we're not going to make it. We're not going to be able to uphold all of that, all of those perfections that don't even exist. So if you're doing this, and I don't know anyone who hasn't, I don't know a single person that I've ever met that says I've never been mean to myself. So this is something that I feel pretty confident that we can talk about where you'll relate. If you're actively mean to yourself, I hope that you lean into this right now, this episode, and that you lean into the love that we're sharing right now with you to let you know that you can stop this right now. You don't need us to tell you either, but you actually have this power because being mean to yourself will not help anyone. It will not help your vibration be in a place where you can do your best. It won't help you help others. It won't help you to get to any of the goals that you have in mind or the intentions that you set. Because being mean to yourself, if you look at those studies they've done where they play music or words to plants and then they look through a microscope to see how the plants are doing, or water, there's the beautiful water experiments. When you say really mean things to water, it becomes this extraordinarily disjointed and not symmetrical looking thing that looks awful when you look at it. And then as soon as you say kind words to it, it goes into this gorgeous, perfectly symmetrical, brilliant design before your eyes that looks like sacred geometry. So this is vibration. Again, our words have power and vibration, and our body experiences it, our psyche experiences it. So please, please, if there's anything you take away from this episode today, at least start a habit of saying one kind thing to yourself. Even if you can't stop all the negative, at least the awareness, bring the awareness to how can I say one thing at least that's kind to myself to start to reprogram the brain that if it's used to saying mean things. What do you think, Kim?
Thank you so much for saying that, first of all, because it's so true. And it was a very unhealthy pattern that I had for a very, very long time. My inner critic was something that I believed and listened to, and I would call myself names. Self worth was something that I struggled with most of my life as a result of childhood trauma. And that just kind of perpetuated it. I was constantly ruminating in my head and telling myself things. When I would make a mistake, I was never kind to myself. The first thing I would say is, "Oh, I'm such an idiot." Don't call yourself names. If you're calling yourself names, you need to take a step back and then tell yourself three kind things about yourself. Some affirmations. I am affirmations. This was actually one of the biggest pieces for me in terms of cultivating self love and building my self esteem and my self worth and my self confidence. I had to retrain my brain and really start to be kind to myself, call myself nice things. And I started practicing treating myself like I would treat my best friend or my daughter or somebody that I loved very, very much, and speaking to myself like I would speak to them. If I made a mistake or I maybe wasn't thrilled about my appearance or or something like that, rather than tearing myself apart, I would just stop and be like, "You know what? No, let's look at the good things," and start telling myself good things about me. And an exercise that I'll often do with clients is when we start working together to start retraining their brains and get them out of this pattern is I will have them complete a list of strengths and things that they do like about themselves. And I say they have to have a minimum of 10 things that they love about themselves. And if they can't say the love quite yet, 10 things that they like about themselves or they could see other people liking about them. And every single time they have those negative thoughts or they say something negative about themselves, I instruct them to go to the list and read the list out loud, not outside, read the list out loud. And also in the mirror, look in the mirror and say some affirmations that are kind and nice about yourself.
And these things can feel silly. We say, stand in front of the mirror and make affirmations. Try it and get back to us because I promise you there's a reason that you've heard this from more than even just us. These things do work. Repetition, your subconscious is listening to everything that you're saying and doing. And the things that you're not saying out loud, your subconscious is aware of too. So this is a way to let your subconscious hear also so that your whole being is now on board with being kind to yourself by saying these things, even if it seems silly and feels silly, please try it. And if you can't, it reminds me of this time when I was in a group session and there was a woman in the group who was having such a hard time saying one kind thing about herself. And the leader of this particular group, this was years ago, in this beautiful group therapy I was in. And I will never forget because everybody was sticking with her. We're like, we're not going to let go. We're not going to stop. We're going to all hold space for you to find something that you like about yourself. Okay, take the word love off the table, but let's find something that you like. And I remember that it was so painful to watch her trying so hard, and she started to get tears. And she said, and then all of a sudden her face lit up and she said, I know what it is. I've got something that I absolutely like about myself. I appreciate about myself. And all of us were so relieved. We were so grateful that she came to this. And you know what it was?
What?
Her nail beds. Literally the way that her nail is on her finger, it looked really nice compared to other people she's seen when she's compared it. It had like all this space where if you polish it or get a manicure, it comes out looking really nice. And she really appreciated that about herself.
Oh,
It was the nail bed. And so I say this to all of you listening just so that you don't feel pressure that you have to say, I love every part of myself. Nobody loves every part of themselves. That's fine. And if you do, wow, come on to our podcast. Let us know because we want to interview you and talk about this and get this beauty from you because we are all so hard on ourselves. But I promise you, the more you practice this, like what you said, Kim, like what you do with your clients, the repetition does help. It creates new pathways. And so our habits, they say, you've probably heard this, what you focus on grows. So if you're focusing, and this is back to mindfulness, back to intention, intentionally focus on what you actually want to grow. So if you want to grow an appreciation and more love for yourself, because you know that it's going to raise your vibration, make it easier for you to be in the world, and people will be drawn to you, and it just makes everything easier when you're kind to yourself, I promise, then you need to focus on being that, be kind. And that's where standing in front of the mirror, as Kim suggested, and literally saying affirmations. Kim, can I ask you to give an example right now of an affirmation that someone could say if they wanted to improve the way they talk to themselves? Just one, because you're so
yeah.
good with
It's a great place to start is practicing telling yourself that you love yourself. Looking at the mirror and being like, I love myself so much. I'm kind. I'm beautiful. Any of these are really great, but I forgive myself for any past mistakes that make me feel like I'm unworthy.
Mm,
I'm
love that one.
I'm committed to doing better and falling in love with myself.
Oh, I love that. And see, that doesn't feel pressure. You're committed to this thing. So you're not saying I have, because there is a little bit of a phony mask situation that can feel like if you just say, I am, and then fill in the blank, right? When you don't feel it inside, it doesn't feel true. And then you feel like you're lying to yourself. And I understand how that can be hard, which is why I love the way that you do affirmations, Kim, because it allows for the reality and the frailty and the questioning that we have. And we're not just saying, I'm there. I'm just so there. Because then what happens? That's the fake it to make it thing, which I definitely know we're going to do an episode about that. So I love the way you do affirmations. Back to you.
Yeah, I've been there, there was a time where I couldn't say things that I liked about myself either. And I would say there was a time that I really despised myself and didn't like myself. So it was baby steps. And it really does start with the self-compassion in terms of cultivating self-love and self-trust, self-esteem, self-worth.
Yeah. And please find something real, even if it's so small as I like my nail beds, because you're going to develop a better trust, a deeper trust with your inner knowing, with your intuition, with your subconscious when you're speaking the truth to yourself. So I'm not saying like, if there's a part of you that you really don't like, either change it or don't mention that part, but find one part that you do really like because we're made up of so many multiple parts. You're not going to like all of them at once.
Right. And I think also a big part of being kind to ourselves is taking good care of ourselves. That is another really great place to start because when we take care of ourselves and we show ourselves self care on a subconscious level, we're proving to ourselves that we value ourselves enough to do this. And it starts to cultivate deeper levels of self love and self confidence. So, when I say take care of yourself, yeah, I mean, going to get your nails done is nice. But what I really mean is taking care of yourself, taking care of your mind, body, and soul. So doing things for you, like, going for walks, some type of movement, taking care of your soul, maybe working with a healer or a coach or joining something for you that gets you out there and gets you socializing, connecting with other people, hydrating, just really proving to yourself that you're worth it.
That's so beautiful. And I know that we could go in deeper into any of these things. And it's good that we have this podcast every single week because I feel like there's so much that we can continue to say and support each other around. And we are going to be having guests on, which I am excited about. But I just want to thank you, Kim, for creating this podcast, this being our second episode, really our third, because we did one that, as you all heard, did not make it to the airwaves, but did make it between us. And I hope that you realize that no matter where you are in your self-awareness, self-love, self-care, corny as it sounds, journey, path, life, wherever you are, we can learn from each other. We can grow. We can be perfectly imperfect together. And I want to thank you so much, Kim, for allowing me the opportunity to show and not just tell, but to show what it is to be a good friend, to show up together, to do something where we just get to, in a very unapologetic, unfiltered way, discuss things that mean a lot to us in the hopes that it also helps and lands on someone else that needs to hear it.
Oh, and thank you for showing up perfectly imperfect and just going with going with it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us on this imperfect journey. And remember to be kind and show yourself compassion and kindness always. Treat yourself like you are a friend.
And if you have trouble doing that, ask someone who really loves you or appreciates you for 3 things that they see in you that they think are wonderful. But please be sure you ask someone that you can trust that they're going to say nice things. And if you can't find those people, you know what? You can DM us at our Instagram and we will definitely send you something very kind and an affirmation. If you don't mind me offering that, Kim, I feel called to say that. You're not left alone here. I mean, part of this podcast and doing this together every week is that we're creating a place for you to feel like you can come in and be with us and be in our energy and be surrounded by so much love and so much compassion. And so if you're not getting that from just listening, DM us.
Yes, please. And while you're at it, please leave us a review in the comments of the podcast and rate us. Let us know if there's anything that you would like us to discuss on the podcast, or perhaps if there's somebody you would love to see us interview.
Yes. And thank you again so much for being with us for this time. We will be here every Wednesday, wherever you listen to podcasts or watch. And thank you, Kim.
Thanks for joining us on Unapologetic Uplift. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share the love and tell a friend about us and give us a review.
Please don't miss a thing. Subscribe to this podcast and explore our sponsors, Objects with Purpose, Eco Luxury Candles, and Divine Activation membership.
Objects with Purpose is more than an eco-luxury candle brand. They are time travel devices in the form of a candle. Light the 3 wicks representing past, present, and future with the validation that you are exactly where you need to be. And if you're ready to raise your level of consciousness and step into your unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era, join the Divine Activation membership at cuttingties.coach/queen. With 3 tiers to choose from, you'll find the perfect fit to support your transformation.
Thank you for your listening and love. We'll see you next Wednesday on Unapologetic Uplift.
Welcome to the Divine Activation membership, a movement for women that are ready to raise their consciousness and step into their unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era.
With your heart, live authentically, and become the magnet for all of your soul's desire.
Grow, connect with your heart and body, release unhealthy and unhelpful thought patterns, heal old wounds, create new neural pathways, and reprogram your subconscious with high-value beliefs so you can manifest the life you're meant for.
Ready to take a break from what's holding you back? Visit cuttingties.coach and join the Divine Activation membership today. Hey, unapologetic souls. I'm Iante Morrow, founder of Objects with Purpose, candles that touch the soul and the body. I've released a limited edition 3-wick candle collection in 3 fragrances inspired by a time in history. The Time Travel Collection, because scent evokes memory and lighting a candle can truly transport you to your highest self. Anytime.
Iante's candles are truly special, clean, safe, even for the body as a solid perfume or massage oil, and smell amazing. But what truly fills her heart is empowering others to be seen in their best light.
In 2020, when the 200 stores that sold my candles across the country closed their doors, I knew it was time to give back. I started guiding others to launch their own candle companies and design candles and fragrances for other brands as a way to share light in a dark time.
So why settle for just any conventional candle? Light the 3 wicks in each Objects with Purpose candle. You're supporting handmade in California, small batch, artisanal, eco-luxury, and treating yourself to a memory-evoking evolution. Visit iantemorrow.com to discover your next favorite candle. Let the olfactory experience inspire cherished memories.